Doesn't it seem like everybody is leaving California and New York? Well, they are. Hey guys, Antoine Martel here, and in this video we're going to be talking about why people are leaving New York and California and moving to other states. So many different factors like taxes, price, and remote work are causing people to leave. But there's much more to that. There's a much deeper story going on here why people are leaving New York and California and moving to other states. But before we get into the video, please like and subscribe to my channel because the real estate market, the real estate industry as a whole is completely changing every single week with interest rates, inflation, all those different types of things. And I'm going to be posting new content every single week on the state of the union of real estate. And watching these videos is the way to stay informed. Now, first and foremost, one of the biggest reasons why so many people are leaving California and New York, taxes. Now, in California, where I live currently, we have to pay 13.3% of our total income to California, while other states like Texas and Florida charge 0% for their state income tax. So for example, let's say you live in California and you make $100,000 a year, you would have to pay 13% of that every single year to California, which would be $13,000 a year going to California, which, if you do the math, is close to $1,000 a month every single month that you would have to pay to California just to live here and be making $100,000. Now, is it worth it? A lot of people don't think so, which is the reason why so many people are leaving the state. Now, New York State is a little bit better than California. The tax rates are a tiny bit lower. New York State has a tax of 6.85% of total income, but if you live in the city, you have to pay an additional 3% of income tax to the city. So if you're making $100,000 a year and you live in New York City, you're gonna have to be paying close to 10% of your total income to both the state and the city. So if you do the math on that, that's a little bit cheaper than California, where California was $1,000 a month. New York, if you live in New York City, is going to be close to $800 a month in additional tax. So let's say, for example, you live in California and you make $1 million a year. Every year you sell an apartment building or flip 5 or 10 or 20 houses and you make $1 million. California would be taking $130,000 a year, which is over $10,000 a month. So now let's say you leave California, you have a $10,000 a month budget to find a place to live, to get new health insurance, to get a new car, all of those different types of things. So it's a no-brainer for people that are making a ton of money and have businesses elsewhere, not based in California, to leave the state, take all that tax savings, and then use that to pay for all of those different types of living expenses. For me personally, this is something that I've been experiencing as well for the last couple of years. The last couple of years, as my businesses have grown, as I've started more and more different companies, there's a lot of income coming from many different places, and California is taking their 13% off the top of every single company every time I get any kind of distribution or W-2 or anything like that. So if I go and flip an apartment building in Memphis and I make $1 million, California is taking $130,000. If I flip a house and make $20,000, California is taking their 13% off of that, and the title company and trucking company. So all of these different companies, no matter where they are, just because I live in California and I don't do any business here, just because I live here, California is taking their 13%. So for me personally, it's a little bit of a no-brainer for me to leave the state. Because once you start making a ton of money, let's say you make $500,000 a year or $1 million a year, just the tax savings of leaving California can pay for your entire cost of living. Let's talk about cost of living. So the next reason why so many people are leaving California and New York is the cost of living. California and New York are two of the most expensive states to live in the US. So compared to other states, California and New York have really high rent, really high home prices, really high gas prices, really high food and beverage costs as well. So let's just focus on gas prices right now. So California has a low carbon gas program, which means that all gas sold in the state has to be mixed to make it carbon friendly. Now this makes the gas way more expensive than other states, and California actually has the most expensive gas in the entire country. Now one of the newest reasons why so many people are leaving Los Angeles and New York and moving to other states is due to remote work. Remote work has taken off over the last couple of years, especially due to the pandemic. So throughout the pandemic, people were kind of forced to work from home. And people that had maybe never worked from home before or didn't think it was possible, and their employers didn't think it was possible for people to be productive at home, started working from home. But I think what the pandemic taught everybody was that people can still be productive, if not more productive, by being at home. So now you're seeing a lot of these big companies like Facebook and Tesla have all these big work from home orders. Due to this remote work epidemic, a lot of people are now moving into larger homes, right? So they're leaving California, leaving their cramped apartment or cramped house. They're moving out of state because they have a remote job. They don't get any pay cut or anything like that. And they're getting bigger places because people are now spending so much time in their house. They want their house to be perfect. They want their house to be big. They want dedicated spaces to do dedicated activities like working out or working or sleeping. And the crazy thing is that it's for the same price, the same amount in rent or mortgage to make that shift. So a lot of people, when their employers told them they didn't have to come in the office anymore, they can work remote, they were like, okay, screw this. I'm not going to work in my bedroom or in my living room anymore. I'm going to move out of state and get a dedicated office and pay the same amount of money every single month in rent. But in addition to that, I get the tax savings. Now, while the cost of living here in California and New York is very, very high, that could all be solved if the salaries and wages were keeping up with it. But the problem is that the salaries in California and New York, due to remote work, are not keeping up with the high cost of living that is going up every single year. So what everybody thinks is that while the cost of living is so expensive in California and New York, it just solved by having really, really high wages. And maybe that used to be the case where people were making 3 times as much living in California or New York compared to other states, but that is not the case right now. People are not making double or triple the amount of money by living in California and paying super high cost of living. The wages over the last 40 years are not holding up to the price of homes when you adjust for inflation. So for somebody that's just coming out of college, first of all, they have a ton of student debt. Second of all, they're not making much money. It's the least affordable time to be alive. And I don't know any of my friends that graduated from college and now bought their dream home or even bought a house for that matter. And I know this better than anyone. I went to college in Los Angeles and I've lived here 5 years after graduating from college. And the funny thing is that so many people at my university actually moved to LA to go to that university. And they all wanted to stay in Los Angeles after graduating, but people, in order to live in Los Angeles, had to do some pretty crazy things. Just like the stories that you hear about of people living in Manhattan and cramming into apartments, the same thing happens here in Los Angeles. And there's a couple of different ways that people were able to live in Los Angeles after graduating from university. So a lot of my friends after graduating from college had to live with roommates. So they would pay anything from $1,000 to $2,000 a month just for a bedroom in an apartment or in a house. Now, the second option for a lot of people graduating from university, from my university, luckily, if they had parents close by, they would actually go live with their parents. They would go back home. They would save that money until they had enough money to be able to move out on their own. Now, obviously, that wasn't possible for everybody. A lot of people, again, moved to Los Angeles to go to university, to go to the same university as me. But after graduating, they either had to move back home, whether that be Oregon or Washington or Kansas, wherever that was, they had to move back home with their parents. A lot of other people got remote jobs, or they got jobs where they had to move states. And they were actually happy that they got to move because they were making $50,000, $60,000 a year, but they were going to move to a place that had a way lower cost of living. Just to illustrate how difficult it is to live in Los Angeles, here's a couple stories that I've known personally. Now, to live in a big city like LA or New York City, people have to do some pretty crazy things in order to live, or maybe you want to call it survive, in a big city like this. Now, one of them was my old roommates actually had 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, how did they do it? They had 2 bedrooms. Each of them had 2 beds, so that fit 4 people. And then there was also an L-shaped sofa, and there was 2 people living on the L-shaped sofa. Even for me personally, I have a story. So I actually went to community college up in San Francisco, and I moved to LA to finish my university. So it was a 4-year university, but I moved in as a junior. So I had 2 years of university at this 4-year university. My first year, I lived on campus. My second year, I really wanted to move out and find a couple roommates. So I took a couple of my soccer buddies, and they actually found a house in Inglewood, which is a pretty rough part of town for LA. We rented a house there for $2,100 and split it with 3 people. Luckily, it was a 3-bedroom, so we all had our own bedrooms, but it was only 1 bathroom. And we were just doing whatever we could to save money. But this was back in 2017, remember that. So this was $2,100 for a 3-bedroom house in Inglewood in 2017. The price today for a 3-bedroom house in that neighborhood is probably $3,000 to $4,000 now. So instead of paying $700 for a room, people are paying crazy numbers, like $1,200, $1,400 a month for a bedroom in not a great neighborhood. So everywhere feels like New York now, where people have to scramble and do crazy things to find a great place to live. Now, you may have seen the news where California and especially Los Angeles actually increased their minimum wage, but the minimum wage is still not enough for the average person to go out and work a day job of just 40 hours a week and have a great place to live, or even a livable place to live. A lot of people have to work 2 or 3 jobs at minimum wage in order to afford food, water, and a roof over their head. And it's just not sustainable. Now, one of the big things happening in California and New York that nobody talks about is homelessness. Now, I personally know a lot of people that are leaving Los Angeles and leaving California due to the homeless situation. And while there's always a homeless issue in any big city that you go to, the problem happening here right now is crazy. I've never seen this many homeless, this many tents littering the streets and freeways and every overpass across the city. And I keep hearing from friends and family that their spouse or girlfriend doesn't want to walk around alone at night. As recently as 2020, the California census counted as much as 161,000 homeless living in Los Angeles, with New York counting over 90,000. In a city of over 8.3 million people, that means almost 1 in 100 New Yorkers is homeless. Nan Rowan, who is the president of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, says the primary cause of the crisis is simple. Housing is too scarce and too expensive. And with the cost of living going up every single year, the homeless situation is only going to get worse, which makes complete sense because everything we've talked about in this video so far has been about the super high cost of living and wages aren't keeping up. With all that being said, I think what we're seeing here is the biggest population shift that we ever have in American history. What I'm seeing is that people are leaving the coast and they're moving inland. People are leaving the coast, leaving their super high tax states, leaving their super expensive houses and super high rents and homelessness and crime and all of these things and moving for a better life. And so if you're thinking like a real estate investor, if you put your real estate investor hat on, how can you take advantage of this big shift that's going on in America right now? All these people are leaving the coast and all of them are moving to the Midwest. So how can you take advantage of this? Well, you can do exactly what I'm doing, which is start investing in those cities. Where's a city that you think people are going to start moving to next? Right? So Texas is already super expensive. Florida is getting expensive. Las Vegas is getting expensive. What are some other cities that people maybe in their early 20s or late 20s are going to start moving to once they get their first remote job? Now there's many cities across the Midwest like Cleveland, Detroit, Memphis, Nashville has already exploded. And there's so many cities across America where many people are going to start moving to. So your job is to go out there, find those cities, find a place where somebody like you or somebody that just got a remote job is going to start moving to because it's going to be too expensive in Texas or Florida. And if you're personally moving to a new state, write it down below in the comments so we can see where everybody else is moving to. So I would recommend not investing where people are already moving to. Invest in some place that is a hidden gem where you think and you know, due to your research and going and visiting, where you think people are going to go to next. That's where you can make crazy money right now. Because houses in Texas and Florida are now $500,000 to $1 million. You want to go find the next city where houses are $200,000. You buy as many houses as you can, wait for the people to flood in, wait for the people to move in, and you can sell or flip those houses when they're worth $800,000 each. And I think a lot of those cities where people are going to go to next is going to be in the Midwest. Because people in those cities can rent out a 3-bedroom house for $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month. And you may be asking, is Antoine going to move out of state? And yes, I am. So I'm going to be making a video and posting it in the next few months. So keep your eyes peeled for a new video on exactly where I'm going and why. So your job as a real estate investor is to find the next California. Where is everybody going to that they don't know they're going to yet? So thank you so much for staying until the end of the video. Please like and subscribe to my channel because every single week I'm going to be giving you guys real estate advice, real estate tips, showing you guys trends like everybody moving into the middle of the country and how you can take advantage of these big changes happening in the real estate industry. See you next time.